Hello and welcome to week 9 now of Corn on the Call. Corn on the Call is being graciously hosted by Blono Pizza Co. this season.
Today we have a special episode. We have two very special guests. And before we get started, this podcast has 91 total downloads. That is 9 away from 100 downloads, so feel free to share the pod. Come hang out with us at Blono Pizza Co. and be sure to listen to our special episode next week.
With us here this week are both Milena and Gavin, who are going to be able to share with us some stories of what it's like for them, both being an intern and the boss of the interns here at the Corn Crib. And we're also going to be able to talk about a really good stretch that the Corn Belters are on for this past week.
So without further ado, I think first we'll pass it over to Milena and then hear a little bit about what you've had to say about your experience so far at Corn Crib and any fun stories that you've had while working there.
Okay, so my name is Milena. I am a sport marketing intern here at the Corn Crib. I am from Michigan. I'm not from Illinois. I go to Adrian College and I am a business major with a sport marketing concentration. So I have 1 year left until I graduate. Basically what I do at the Corn Crib is I'm kind of like an all-around person. I started off with these people here at the broadcasting team, and then I moved on to marketing and then to sales. And overall, I've just really loved my experience here. I think some of the best times is when obviously we win, but we have our big theme nights and we have so much commotion going on and everything is just so fun. Everyone's having a great time. We have Corny out. We got our fun crew doing some great games with the kids. I would have to say probably Harry Potter night is my favorite theme night. I'm a big Harry Potter fan. Me and my parents always watch Harry Potter on like just random nights and we love it so much.
So my name's Gavin Leggett. I'm the assistant general manager for the Normal Corn Belters, and also one of the internship coordinators. It's been an awesome time. This is probably one of my favorite seasons so far. Just the fact that we get to do this broadcast here. It's a broadcast led and run by our interns. In the growth we've been able to see from the start now has been amazing and awesome. Let's see, and then so kind of what I do there, I do a little bit of everything just like our interns as well, but I help run our internship program, I help oversee our corporate sales, and then help run our day-to-day operations with our GM, Matt Stembridge, and really just finding when and where I can help and how we can make the best experience out there each and every day. For everyone that walks in the bar.
So obviously everyone has to start somewhere to get into the sport industry, and for the Normal Corn Belters, the motto about that team is, and the organization as a whole is, it's where baseball grows. And so I think a really great thing about the Belters is that it's such an affordable experience and a great way for kids, just learning about the sport, to interact with players, with fans, with Corny, for example. And I just am wondering about your perspectives as to what sort of experiences you've had with your time working over at the Corn Crib and just sort of interacting with fans, where you've sort of seen that relationship with baseball grow and prosper with young fans as well as older fans.
So I think one of the most special things about having the kids out at the stadium is seeing the interaction with players. Players are really awesome. They love seeing the kids. They give over 5 balls. Like, overall, it's a great experience. You see all these little kids running, sprinting, chasing for these 5 balls for an ice cream sandwich. Like, it's just so fun and so wholesome to see just the excitement. Ultimately, they have a great time at the Corn Crib. Every time when I'm on Fun Crew, which is basically where we get people to come play games with Corny out on the field, they love it. They get so excited when they hear they get to go out on the field. Their eyes light up. That is the best part about having the kids out at the stadium, I would say, for me.
So yeah, where baseball grows for me, going back to our fans and the fanship that we're building out through the community, comes from a little bit of the KCL starting up. Even though it's ended, we get to introduce 4 new teams each year to the community. The Belters have been around for a while, so watching that where baseball grows in a fan's eyes is encouraging the fanship of the Belter to continue, and then creating new fanships in the Ground Sloths, the Merchants, the Bobcats, the Blue Caps there, and really being able to start fresh with the team and kind of call it your own. I think that's a really cool thing that we get to offer and showcase, and really it's just all about the memories. If you can continue to grow the memories, I think we're hitting our goal of where baseball baseball grows from the beginning of the season to end. You know, you never know what exactly is going to happen at the ballpark. You never know when your team is going to change. You know, a lot of people will change up their teams from the Ground Sloths to the Blue Caps halfway through the season. It's so much fun to really have all that we have out there at the Corn Crib.
So our last question for our two guests is, what made you decide to go into the sports industry as what you want to do as a career?
So for me, I didn't start out as sport management. I started out as an international business person. I didn't have my heart into it, so I was just taking a couple intro classes, trying to see what I liked, what I didn't like, what I excelled in, and here was sport management. And I loved my classes, I loved my peers, regardless of the fact that it is primarily guys. I've definitely had to learn how to adapt to that situation, being able to connect with them, because males obviously connect with each other on a very different level, learning how to connect with them. But overall, sport is such an evolving business. It doesn't stay stagnant, which is what I like. It's never going to stay the same. There's always going to be something moving. There's always going to be something growing. And that's what draws it to me, because I feel like nothing ever will be boring in the workplace. I'm not a person to sit behind a desk and just fill out paperwork all day, and I don't feel like sport will ever become that, to the point where people stop being interested in it. Someone will always be a fan of sports, so I believe that that is what drew me to sport.
Yeah, kind of to play off that a little bit, of everybody needs sports in their lives, and I think that for me was a little bit of, you know, when we went through the COVID-19 pandemic, it kind of opened my eyes as to, you know, what kind of impact I'm actually making. Initially, my thought was, man, sports has to be an awesome and cool place to work. You know, like, who can ever say they work for a baseball team? Actually really thinking about it and learning more and watching the experiences that I get to be a part of. For me now, more about creating memories and making an impact on those people that walk into our ballpark, whether it is on a Wednesday night or a Saturday night. I want them to have the best experience possible. I want them to come out and be able to make memories with their friends and their families. I know for me, growing up, it was a huge part of my life, of coming out to the Corn Belter games even when I was a kid. And so now I just want to do the same for others, and I think that's why I've ultimately stuck with it for quite some time now. I can't imagine, you know, working in a place other than sports right now. I grew up going to the Corn Belter games. They started when I was in 2010, so I'd have been 10 years old. One of my experiences that I can remember, and mainly through pictures, but I got to throw out the first pitch at a Corn Belters game on my birthday in their first year. And I remember I've got the jersey, it hangs up in the office. Corny was able to sign it. You know, for me growing up, that's been my home ballpark. That's been the place, you know, we go on the weekends and whatnot. And so now being able to get the opportunity to work there and make an impact, it's wanting to create those same memories for future families and the community over the next few years here. I want to give a huge shout out to all of my interns. They have been fantastic this year. They work their butts off. Can I say butt? Yeah. Awesome. Yeah, they worked their butts off this year. And ultimately, you know, we're recording this on July 26th. National Intern Day is on July 28th. Yes. No, I'm completely serious. So National Intern Day is on July 28th, and so I wanted to use this opportunity to give a shout out to all of our interns. They're fantastic. The work and the energy and the hours that they're able to put in shows that each and every one of them is really cut out for what working in the sports world is. We play a lot of baseball games, more than almost any other team in their own ballpark. So for them to be able to go through this opportunity here and be able to stick with it through the end has shown some great guts. And I believe that each one of them will go far, and I know for a fact they'll go far. So I want to give a shout out to all those guys.
So thank you so much to our guests for coming on, and it was a little bit of a scramble last minute, as we do have a star guest coming on for next week's podcast. We won't spill the beans on that just yet, but thank you to the Big Kahuna, Gavin, and thank you to Milena for swinging by and talking to us about their sporting experience, so fans can get a little bit of a deeper insight into what goes on at the ballpark for the Belters. But Megan, you talked about it a little bit ago, but I think it would be a really great idea for us to sort of delve into our own sports origin stories, as you put it, sort of like how we're superheroes. But I think it'd be cool to talk about how we got invested into sport and just sort of go from there, and then talk a little bit about the Belters.
I was gonna say you should start.
So my sports origin story was back in high school when I became I was the editor for my high school newspaper, and I was one of probably the only guys that was like actually on the team, which was really weird, but that left a very big gap for sports reporting because not many of the girls were very interested in it. And I started sports writing when I was probably 15, 16, and I don't know, it grew on me so much, and I was like, this is an industry that I absolutely have to be a part of. This is what I want to do. This is what I'm good at. And I know there's the saying that if you love what you're doing, you never work a day in your life. And so ever since then, I've just sort of been following the flow of wherever sports takes me. It went from doing some RSOs at my school to doing play-by-play commentating at our radio station, and now I'm doing the broadcasting for the Normal Corn Belters. And so I hope to only keep on growing and growing from here. But like, I've had some really amazing opportunities. I was able to do a marketing program with the Kansas City Chiefs, and I got to speak with executives there and got to tour the stadium when we completed it, which was absolutely amazing. And it just sort of helped to ground me to keep my mind straight on what goals I had to hit in order to get there eventually someday. And I feel that I really that I'm just completely sold on the industry, and there's nothing else for me. So yeah, that's a little bit of my story. I mean, there's so much more that goes on, and I'm sure you guys feel the same way.
Blake, what is your career end game as of right now?
As of this moment, it's to eventually become a play-by-play broadcaster for the Chicago Bears. I don't know what the road is going to be like to actually get there, but I mean, like, I've gotten further than I ever thought I would. So I'm just going to keep on going and taking what life gives me, and eventually maybe I'll be there someday. We'll have to see, but that's the goal for now, and that's been the goal for a long time.
For me, I think my sports origin story starts from, it was like a scale from the beginning when I was sitting in the outfield and I didn't know what a shortstop was, and I was having the worst time of my life when I was little.
You know now?
Huh?
You know now?
Yeah. Now, I still don't know what a shortstop is, guys. Let's be honest. But like, to be able to go from that point when I didn't understand sports and I didn't like it to the point where I've been able to learn it, and the more I've learned about it and the more I've been able to understand each respective sport that I like, the more I've been able to follow it and enjoy them. That's gotten me to here to where I am able to do something that I never thought I could ever do. Like, I would be, the first two sports I ever got into were NASCAR and baseball. But like, when I would be 12 or something, and I would be sitting and showering, and most people sing in the shower, and I would be like talking, doing what I do now, talking about sports, talking about what is going on in the sports world. And I just kind of realized this wasn't just something that was fun for me to do in my free time. This is something that I'm actually kind of good at. And so I got into college, and I decided I wanted to do journalism because I like sports and politics, and I wanted to do both. But I've learned that I really, really like the sports side of things. It's really come to fruition here with the Corn Belters because now I have, I've been broadcasting like I have over the past school year with WZND at ISU, but I've been broadcasting here over the summer as well. I've been making connections and things like that, and I think I've really kind of decided that sports is, if nothing else, that sports is definitely something that I would be able to go down as far as a road for my future. Career endgame, working for either the Cardinals or for NASCAR. I found out, you didn't hear this from me, but I found out with my meeting that I had with the teacher that basically gives me the college credit I get for this internship. He talks to me about my future in like next year and said that I would have the possibility to maybe work for the Cardinals next year over the summer. And that just kind of really helped me realize I actually do kind of have an ability, I have connections and things like that to take it to the next level. And from the point where I would just be going on a walk and normal, I'd be like, whoa, this corn crib looks so cool, to the point that I'm like, this is just the corn crib, I walk in here every day. If I could do that for something as big as working for the Cardinals or something like that, that'd be a really big deal for me.
So it started for me back in middle school. I did not really know anything about sports. My family were all musicians. We all did band, theater, speech. None of us were in athletics for a long period of time. Like, my sister and I figure skated growing up, but it was nothing competitive. And then my sister and I started playing softball. And when that started in 5th grade, I would sit with my stepdad and watch Cub games with him. And we would just watch the Cubs, and I started to ask him questions I'd be like, why did the runner just do that during a play, like steal a base? Like, I would ask, like, why is the pitcher doing this? And I would ask him all of these questions, and I was so curious about this sport. And during the 2016 season, I would have to say my stepdad and I probably watched 130 of the regular season games. I mean, my stepdad and I, we'd have dinner, like the family would all watch the Cubs games, which pretty much only my sister, my stepdad and I were interested in. Sorry to my mom and my brother. But I just loved it so much. And they won the World Series. Like in 7th grade, when I was in 7th grade, that was the season, 2016. So they won the World Series. And that was such a huge moment, I know, for my stepdad, because he grew up on the north side and he went to Cubs games all of the time as a kid. And so seeing him have this just moment of pure joy and relief that after 108 years, the Cubs had finally won a World Series again. And in 8th grade, there was just like a moment where I was like, this is what I heard Len Casper and Jim Deshaies on the TV. And I was like, I want to do this. In 8th grade, and people were like, well, are you serious? Like, first of all, you're a woman, and you're also like in 8th grade, you're going to change your mind. And then I got to high school, and by the time I got to freshman year, I had researched Columbia College, Tribeca, and all these like media schools, and I was like, where can I go to find success? And eventually I found Bradley through my sister, who went to Bradley, the Superior Central Illinois University. And I had started doing broadcasting for my school. I was a competitive speech team member. I did radio speaking for 4 years. So I've had performance experience, and then I got to college, and everyone told me since 8th grade, they're like, do you know how hard this is going to be? Like, do you know how difficult of a challenge this is going to be? I'm like, yeah, but like, why not try? Like, this is what I want to do. So when I got to Bradley, there was an internship for hockey. And like the first week I saw this letter, I had never seen a hockey game before in my life. And I emailed the former director and I said, hey, I want to do this. And a year later, I'm the director of the hockey broadcast because I put myself into it. I broadcast for Bradley baseball, and I love every second of what I do. And I was sweating a little when Blake said his career end game was to work with the Chicago Bears, because I heard Chicago and I was scared you were going to say the Chicago Cubs. And I was going to say, because that's my career end game. And I was like, are Blake and I going to have to duke it out in like 10 years over this job?
We don't have to fight for it. We can both work.
We are fighting for
No, there's only one job.
Well, I was like, if he wants to, if he wants to do play-by-play and I want to do play-by-play, like, are we going to have to brawl for it?
I can do color.
You can do color. Perfect. Yeah. So yeah, that's my story.
So now we can sort of transition to talking a little more about our actual jobs currently. Really quickly, the Corn Belters are the hottest team in all of baseball right now. That includes the Seattle Mariners. That includes the Baltimore Orioles. Say whatever you want. I think the Corn Belters could go up against any of them with Peyton Dillingham at their side and come out with a victory against any of the major league teams. They are on a 7-game win streak. They're 9-1 in their last 10, and they just took the lead in the Great River Division in the Western Conference.
So I broadcast the games on Friday and Saturday where they played the West Virginia Miners. And Peyton Dillingham somehow continues to keep hitting home runs at the Corn Crib. Friday and Saturday. He hit a home run in each game, and then he walked, had singles. I mean, it just doesn't feel real watching Peyton Dillingham play baseball, because I looked, and on Sunday, he had been the last 4 out of 5 players of the games. It's all Peyton Dillingham, and the Corn Belters, it just always was Peyton Dillingham. And just seeing him support this already good and well-connected team is so impressive. And I was just looking at their statistics. We are last in hits and doubles in the league, but we are the top of our conference. Like, we are at the top of the Great River Division, and without having anywhere near the highest amount of hits. So I think that's so impressive that right now this team, who had been a singles doubles kind of team where they just put small hits together and then walk, steal bases, steal home sometimes, are now bolstered by Peyton Dillingham, who is now quickly rising up the ranks of home run leaders.
I think that's a good point. We've been talking about it all year that the Corn Belters have not really hit well, but they've gotten a lot of walks and a lot of small fundamental parts of the game. They just haven't gotten the big important getting getting hits, getting extra base hits, things like that. But I think the big difference here over this last week that has finally gotten the Corn Belters onto a little bit of a tear is that they have been able to get a few guys on here from the KCL back onto the team that were able to hit, because at the end of the day, you need some guys that can go out there and hit consistently for average. And the Corn Belters have not been consistent. They'd had guys that on occasion were able to go for some really good nights, but not to the consistency level that you need for this league. And to be able to get the KCL guys on this team and do that has been a big deal. I think this is our opportunity to gloat as a podcast, because we were talking about it last week. This is the Corn Belters team. At that point, a week ago, we were saying this team has not won a lot. They're on a really, really rough start to this month, and they really need to find a way to turn things around. And we said that the KCL guys coming onto the team would be those X factors that the Corn Belters need. And you've got not only Peyton, but you've got several other guys from the KCL. Connor Olson that I was talking about last week, he's batting over 400. Jackson Blemler batting over 400 as well. So you've got a lot of new guys on this team that are able to be consistent at that middle part of the order and get you hits, get you people on base, and start rattling your opposing pitching. I think that's what it's taken for the Corn Belters to finally get things rolling again and now get themselves in the midst of a pretty good sizable winning streak and get themselves quite a few games, 4 games in fact, over the next team in the second half standings.
Before we close, I'm introducing a new segment to this podcast called Fun Facts with Megan. So we were talking about the KCL having a bunch of new players, and we played the West Virginia Miners. So of course, the new additions to the Corn Belters are most notably Peyton Dillingham and Jackson Blemler. But Ryan Willard has also joined the Corn Belters, and he pitched in the second game of that mini-series. And the West Virginia Miners have Gage Wolf, Cade Sharp, and Garrett Latos, all former KCL players. So at some point, there was an entire, if you put all the KCL players together, you could field a team of former KCL players. And I think that's super fun. Also, I was taking a little look at the individual leaders and seeing, hey, aren't any of the Corn Belters on here? And the answer is going to be probably no for batting average, RBI, and home runs, since we are notably not one of those teams. However, in pitching, Bodie Gabing for the normal Corn Belters has a 217 earned run average. And that is leading Prospect League by a sizable amount, too, because Curtis with the Lucky Horseshoes is at 292. And stolen bases. In the lead, Burris from the Alton River Dragons has 38, and our very own Jackson Chatterton has 34.
So while the rest of the Corn on the Call cast debates about ISU and Bradley baseball,
of all, you're the one making a meme during the podcast.
I was doing no such thing.
Yeah,
there is no video evidence of that happening. I wanted to touch one more time on Bodie Gabing and talk about how crucial he's been for this roster. He's a guy who came in at the beginning of the season, and he is here now heading into August. He has been here for an entire season of baseball, where not many guys have, outside of a Cy Kerber or a Ben Higgins. There really have not been many guys on this roster who have gone the distance, and especially to think that he went the distance while he was pitching, one of the hardest positions in all of sports, arguably. He went the entire distance for a full season, and he has just been incredible the entire time. He's been such a consistent player for the Belters to be able to lean on. And when you look at this lineup that the Belters have been working with for their pitchers, there are so many different names, and he's one of the only ones here that's actually made it towards the end of the season. Good for Bodie Gabing, and he's also just a great chemistry guy. I want to touch on that too. I always see him running around in the dugout. He's always joking around with Cy Kerber. I see him. He even got to be a first base coach when Coach Turner wasn't there for the Belters. So Bodie Gabing is definitely one of my favorite players, and I definitely think he's one of the favorite players on the podcast up to this point, and I feel a little guilty for leaving him out of our all-star conversation as just an honorable mention, because I think that he arguably should be up there with Luke Olson. But just one last point that I wanted to touch on was, I think it's so crazy how Peyton Dillingham has come in and stolen the home run crowd just right out from under Will Henson and Ben Higgins. Henson and Higgins were going back and forth all season, and I would always comment on how these guys are going to keep on going back and forth, and eventually one of them is going to take the crown. And now Dillingham, after only playing in 7 games, has taken the lead already, and it's not looking like he's going to be stopping anytime soon, and it's looking like he might even get up into the double digits before the season ends with the pace that he's going. I know, bold prediction, bold claim to make, but I think if anyone can back me up on it, it's Peyton Dillingham. So that's going to be a wrap now on the 9th week of Corn on the Call. We didn't mention it at the beginning, but if you don't know by now, we were your hosts. hosts, Braden Fogerson, Megan Ruger-Smith, and Blake Borgard.
As I said at the beginning, we are only 9 downloads away from 100, and we would love for you all to go back, and if you haven't watched previous episodes, we cover the Corn Belters throughout the season. It's definitely a podcast where you don't have to have deep baseball knowledge to understand. We do delve into statistics sometimes, but I would say it's a podcast for everyone. Baseball enjoyers, parents of Corn Belters players, interns, our bosses. Shout out to Gavin listening to this right now. So be sure to download Corn on the Call, and as always, you can come hang out with us and be on the lookout for our special guest on next week's podcast.
Catch us next week on Corn on the Call.